Hello, my name's Jonny Bainbridge. I play bass guitar in Seven Crowns, and I play guitar and collaborate in the Basement 7. Lots of sevens, no threes, all sevens. So yeah, I've been asked by the wonderful people at Bluurg TV, which is the new beautiful thing from Bluurg Records, or Bluurg in general. It's Bluurg TV, much needed at this time. Anyway, so I've been asked by them if I would like to contribute to an idea they've got to make a short film about punks who paint, or painty punkers, punky painters, paints who punk, punks who paint. So I'm obviously overjoyed to do that. I'm quite new to painting, a year and a half, maybe 2 years. So yeah, really happy to be asked that and talk about art and painting, because it's min. So 3 things to address. That's 6. 3 things to address. Address is a bit formal as to talk about, or why I got into art and painting, why I like painting, and to show and tell and discuss a painting which I've done. So, numero uno, why did I get into painting? How did I get into painting? So there's a bit of a story there. It was like, there's many ways. It was like, oh yeah, I love painting and everything, but there was actually a pivotal moment in time, in life, which swerved everything down that kind of path of colour. And that was a few years ago. I'd spent a lot of years doing landscaping and stonework and big mosaics and floor stuff and spirals and whatnot. But a couple of years ago, I had a real career change, basically, if you want to say it like that, and ended up teaching in a prison. It seems a bit random looking back. It seemed really logical at the time, but looking back, it was like, hello. So I did that for a couple of years, but and there was one moment when I was having my introductory kind of tour of the prison, if you like, and through all the departments. The guy led us through the painting, what was the painting and decorating department, and at some point it had also doubled up as an art department, way before the time I was there. So the guy was going, yeah, this is this and this is that, and in here is, I don't really know, opened this drawer and it was absolutely full of tubes of oil paint. Different sizes, but generally full of really top grade oil paint. As I now know, at the time I didn't. And he was like, oh yeah, I think at some point the old art teacher was going to use these materials to do such and such, but they pulled the plug on it. They had a bit of a readjustment, as does happen in those environments, and they stopped doing it, so the stuff was locked up. Does anybody paint? Do you paint? The word yes was out of my face before I had even thought about it. I didn't paint, and I hadn't painted, but apparently somewhere in here decided that I did paint, and he went, okay, that's yours. So I ended up with a huge pile of paint, which I've still got now, and everything that I've painted since then has came from the prison paint, which, hello. So there's a beauty in that to start with. So that's what started it. I had the paint. All I needed then to do was to do something with it. So I came back and I bought a load of teeny little canvases like this. I didn't have any brushes, so I would just use sticks, mainly cocktail sticks, because you could really drag that oil paint around, which was fascinating and amazing and catches the light in amazing ways. And I converted this shed. And when I say converted, I took out the lawnmower and I hid it in a table, and that was my converted shed into my art studio. So that's how it started, and I soon realised after doing those tiny little things that it was a revelation of awareness, if you like, and that was that. The road was set, and I honestly can't imagine life without it anymore. So that's how it started, and also staying on the prison thing. In there I taught like construction skills and English and various other little things, but towards the end of the time in there, I had the opportunity to teach art. To the guys who were in there, and I had no experience I've had no training in art or education or anything like that, or in teaching art, so I totally blagged it, which was mint and terrifying. So I got these guys in the room. I got as much arty materials together as I could: pencils, crayons, acrylics, oils, bits of wood to do literally anything that I thought you could use to create. Was slammed onto that table. I had a group of about 10 lads, and my main directive, the main thing that I wanted to do was to just break down because obviously you can imagine in an environment like that, everything is like beyond military precision, you know, that every single minute of every day is planned out. So in that moment of time where I had them for that month, the whole, my primary thing was to abolish that, and there were no rules. There was nothing to tick, there was no qualifications, there was no fail, and there was no pass, and there was nothing like that. And the reaction was, at first they were like, they were terrified and confused, as was I. But over time, it was like, okay, lads, you do what you want. Here's a few ideas, obviously. You know, you can follow templates, you can copy this, you can colour that in, you can just do whatever you want. And over time, it just became, every day was a revelation. I've never ran to work. I didn't really run to work, but I felt like running to work, you know. I never knew what was going to happen or what these guys had in them, and more importantly, they didn't know what they had in them. Some of them would just sit there and not really do anything. Just make shapes, make colours, create things, break things. And some of them just really came to life, you know. A, because of the lack of rules, and B, because they had the space, maybe for the first time ever, to really discover parts of themselves that they didn't know they had, which is exactly what was happening to me with the discovery of that little box of magic paint that I got. So, yeah, so from teaching that kind of thing, I learned the real value of what art, but painting and colour. And then I kind of went, without going on about it, I could talk about it forever, and I might. But certain colours, we all know about colour therapy and all this kind of stuff. I didn't know that much, so there was a lot of experimentation. I wonder what happens if they get like a blue, a green and a yellow. What happens if I take the yellow away and blah, 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 such and such and such. And then you would find that people would naturally gravitate towards certain groups of colours maybe, which was fascinating. As did I, as I discovered. So within doing that, it was a massive revelation to me to see the two-way learning, teaching thing going on. And that opened the door to painting for me. And I can probably say it is now my greatest passion, and if I even dare say it, it's probably overtaken music. Oh my God, what have I just said? But it has. So that's how I got into painting and why. So what do I like about it? Pretty much goes back to that, but I like it because it seems art and creativity seems to exist sometimes on its own. I might fail in my articulation of it because sometimes the words fail, don't they, you know? But it just seems to be a place that you can go to, and this, I don't want to sound like really corny, but something that happens, and again, creating music is very simple because it's art, isn't it? But sometimes it's those times where you can paint and minutes can seem like hours and hours can seem like seconds, and reality melts, basically. It melts the more you do, and you can just grab things and make things, and especially if you don't really have a solid plan. Because I've found that generally, and I would say in 80% of the paintings that I've planned, they've came out a billion miles away from where I started and what I'd planned. And there's a lot of emotions wrapped up in that, because you think, right, I'm planning it, because I'm really obsessive anyway, and it drives me mental, like, but I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to mix that colour, and that's going to look like this, and that's going to look like that. And 15 minutes later, none of that has happened. But something new has happened. And it can either be binned, or it can be elaborated on, or you know, the faults can be magnified into positives, negatives into positives, and turn on failures into, because there is no failure. There is no failure in art, which is what I genuinely believe. So, what do I like about painting? It's a, you know, I can say things. It is a release, but it's also it dredges up, and there's times you can just be sitting and it's almost like it's just kind of, I'm following. I don't know who's doing it because I didn't even know I could do it. So if I can do that, everybody can do that. Keeping your eyes open. And it really, it's. I now look at everything completely different. The whole universe is completely different from how it was before I was given that teeny little box of magic colour. You know, amazing. So the joy of it is that it's a full-on escape, like a lot of art is. But it can also, and I also think it triggers in you, me and you. It brings out stuff that is buried. It can be buried because I don't know where a lot of this stuff comes from. And I'm sure a lot of people who are involved in creative pursuits are the same. And you know, there's that cliched thing where it's like a bolt from the blue, but it literally sometimes is, and sometimes it's crap. Sometimes it's just like, well, okay, well, it seems like I've made that happen, but there's also a part of me is thinking, did I really do that, or did that do that to me? You know, so the beauty is never knowing what's coming, really. Even like I say with the plans, this one in particular over my left shoulder, which seems to be catching the light really nicely at the minute, wasn't meant to be anything like that. It was meant to be all those big bold lines. It's not finished, by the way. It's the current work in progress, and it probably won't look like that in a week's time. But as a classic example, it was just meant to be gold and bloomy and autumny. But now there's all these wispy things coming in, and you can't really see the detail. But anyway, I could go on forever. What do I like about it? Because it's beautiful. Colours are amazing. Colours change. Light changes colour. Colour changes light. It's so beautiful. I hope that's answered that one. So now it's time to show and talk about a painting, which I've done. Done loads. There's been absolutely loads. I've really tried to be punk about it. So I'm just going to do it. There's no training. I'm just like picking up my guitar. It's got 4 strings on. They're all out of tune. I'm plugging into an amp. That doesn't really work unless I kick it. And the best sound I can get out of it is if I slash it with a knife. So I've tried to be a little bit like that. I haven't, especially with this painting, because I had to, as I'll get to in a minute. So a little bit of that DIY punk thing, crappy brushes and all of this kind of stuff. So this was the painting. This is the painting. Can't see which way it was up, but this is it. It's called the Tears of Fee. Tears as in layers, fee as in spirals. Golden ratio. So, anyway, it came from an absolute failure of a painting. All the colours that you see, if I hold it back here, all the colours that you see were from a different painting. Oh, well, it's the same painting, obviously, but on the surface. I painted something, I couldn't get it right. None of the colours seemed to match. It drove me mental. I was like, I could see in my mind what it was meant to do, but I couldn't get the colours, I couldn't get the tones. So I painted the whole thing black. I got a big like something like this, filled it with black. Was it lamp black or Payne's grey or something like that, like a bluey black. And I didn't know about transparent or semi-transparent or opaque paints. I didn't know they existed. I found that out by mistake. Kintsugi. I've been trying to think what that thing is. Kintsugi is that Japanese take on making mistakes. I think it stemmed from broken pottery. Somebody tries to fix it, and rather than try and conceal the cracks so you can't see them, so it's perfect, it's enhanced the cracks by painting them gold or something like that. So it's making the mistakes part of the new piece, if you like, which is exactly what this kind of thing. So let's say it was a disaster to start with. If I hold it back here, you might see, no, you can't really see it, but there's a painting under there, and it didn't work. So I covered it and and I put a lot of linseed oil in. Hadn't really used that before. Some liquid, and I basically just poured this black on it, and I was going pretty mental because I was gutted that the painting had failed. Poured it on, and just left it. Left it for a while. Thought when it'll go off and I'll come back and I'll do something else. Fine, move on, get over it. But then I just sort of picked up a couple of things and scratched it, and ooh, the colours are coming through. The colours are still there from beneath it, but because of the black and the oil, it was taking on a whole different thing. So I continued with that. I didn't really use brushes. I've got a box of stuff here. It hasn't really toilet brush, sponges, more sponges. It's a stick, sometimes a brush, scratchy things, rakey things, a hammer. I used all of that. So basically, and then from that came the finished thing, which is, it's not the best thing I've done, and I don't really know how much in the grand scheme of things what I really think of it, but the reason that I want to talk about it is because it was a failure, and I was really gutted about it, and it led me to discover a new way of thinking about what's real and what's success and what's failure in art, because who really knows? You know, people spend £1 million on a painting, and the next person probably will just walk past it and not even think about it. So that is the painting. Like I say, so I scratched and I dug and I cut the canvas in places, and I just ripped it, and then I put more oil on, and then I put more colour on, and then I just kept at it, and it was trying to use that punk thing of just like destroy it. It was totally destroyed, and then I tried to pull it back, not from the brink of destruction because it was already destroyed, but to pull it back and to make it into something completely new. And there it is. So whether you think it's great or whether you think it's crap is totally irrelevant, and whether I do or not, because I don't even know what I really think about it. All I know is that, again, the lesson was like, it's okay for things to be completely broken because they can be fixed and become something beautiful. And there's a lot of bravery, there was trepidation, there was fear. I was like, you've invested time in it. I mean, we're talking first world problems here, like, but it's life, isn't it? So, but there was all of that. Oh, good God, have I gone too far? What happens if? Oh my God, made it even. All of this stuff that you're going through to create something, and in the end, it was just like, okay, it's done. Since then, I've done quite a few more like that, and I've actually done underpainting with the intention of blacking over the top of it. But I've actually gone into real detail, so I'm thinking the painting's actually finished as it is, Now I need to take that step of going, and now I'm going to paint it black. I'm just going to pour this stuff on it. But also in the mixing of the black, if you get the oils mixed wrong with the thinner and the blah, 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 it really can destroy it. And I must have really properly destroyed loads because I didn't have that workability or the transparency that I needed to get that effect. So I've spent a lot of time on this painting, painted it black. I've went to scratch it off, and I can't. The paint, so it's gone. So it literally is, I've painted it black. There's a song about that. So it's a bit like life. All of that's like life, isn't it? Soldiering on, taking the knocks, picking up, da-da-da-da-da-da. Because art is life, and life is art. And there's no existence without it. That's it. Okay. Happy days.
Art was my favourite subject at school, and I went on to do a foundation year and 2 further years in graphic design before turning to music. I returned to it some years later as I realised I'd been missing being creative. I like painting because there are no limits to the combinations and effects that can be achieved. I mainly work in collage and love creating the contrast of that precision with the looseness of painting. With this one, Karma, I worked up a dappled background with paint, some more disciplined painting on the skull and the snake and flies, and then collage on the face and this little clock. Just so that you got a bit of everything, and then coated it with varnish. Sometimes I use resin, but varnish was suitable in this one. And and you can see various other combinations of paint and collage behind me, I think, with some of the other work. I first got back into creativity through stained glass. I signed up for some evening classes and started to make little panels and things, including the fan light up there, and it's very labour intensive with leading and cutting the glass and everything, but it's very satisfying to do, and nerve-wracking when you're doing it into a specific space that has to fit, and that was how I came back into it before I started on the collage. So the first main big assemblage I did of this great thing is probably about 20 years old, I think. I'd just become a manager and came down with chicken pox, so I decided to do a project while I was stuck at home, and this was the result. I just liked the mixture of all the things, and I had no idea what it would look like when it came out. There's all the bits of cut up stained glass in there. There's little plastic beer bottles that my friend in Mexico sent me. It's actually my stylus to my old Bang & Olufsen deck in there. A hand that for the adverts, top of the Pops appearance featured, all sorts. So these enclosed ones are, again, very big, heavy MDF ones. That's called Christening. That's got my actual christening dress in it, and pictures of there's a picture of me modelling it in the middle, and with my parents when they were younger and things like that, and all sorts of little bone vases and keys and symbolic things, and then zooming up to the present. These ones above are, I think the most recent of those is the Death Rose one, which is charcoal and acrylic, and the middle one, Soul Snatcher. That's just everything. It's collage paper, paint, pencil, and resin poured over it. And the one to the left of that is also a resin coated one that I did. That I rather like. The sort of star thing in that is the Tunnocks tea cake wrapper, which was absolutely perfect for it. And then moving along, there's various other well, you can't get far away from them in here. And then more of these big ones down here. I'm trying to emulate the Capuchin Church in Rome with these rows of ribs and things that I pick up on the shore, and this one was another. It looked it's a bit dated now, but now you can see how it's evolved. These ones are again in little glazed boxes, generally featuring mummified frogs, and all sorts of things there with little stories in that could be told, but I could be here all day. This is another on sort of MDF again, but with sort of interesting pieces of text behind, and paint and pen and collage. And this one we've talked about earlier. This is on canvas. It's pretty just last year's one. And that's all that sort of you know, technology and the bad side of it. That's paint and collage, and then there's various other things. These are the some of the 2016. I take photos and sort of do electronic collages with them, and there's a series of 10 different ones there. These are kind of like paperweights made of resin that I've made. This one's got a mummified mouse in it. You can just make him out. Actually, there he is. His little head. And these were those nice little papier-mâché things that children have to paint in shops. Somebody gave me. Record sleeves I've designed, and CDs and things. These are again the photographically done ones, and yeah, photo I've taken of this is actually a fern unfurling in my garden, and this is a interesting sort of East End street. And this again is they're just great fun to put together and print out, and then quite often I hand paint them afterwards. And then finally, here are some what I've been doing this year, the influenced by the current situation. This is Ring of Roses, and again it's sort of paints, looser sort of paint, and collage pieces. And for some reason I do a lot of flies these days. There's some more down here like that. Oh, that one doesn't have any flies in it. Those some of them turn into sort of little beasties or fairies, but they're generally right. But anyway, that's the sort of thing, and that's what I'm doing.